Now that we have the main part of our picture finished, the bottom's done, our cypress tree, our cloud, or our moon, now we're gonna fill in the top. And to do that, we are first gonna start by adding in a yellow area just above the hills. Van Gogh had a space from about here. Here, watch this part, it's kind of funny. It goes over, it's like jets down, and then connects down here. So it almost looks like a little lightning bolt. Over and up. And then it went right to the top of this. So we are going to first fill in this area of color. So what I want you to do is I want you to outline the top of your mountains you've already made. And then just underneath, I want you to go and I want you to go straight out close to your waterfall, zigzag back real quick, and then pull it on down to your cypress tree. You can go ahead and paint that in yellow. Yes, you're going to see some of the blue behind it. That's okay. We're going to add blue to it. So after we have that nice and yellow, smooth out that color. I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to use white. And with that white, I'm going to go through and I'm going to add those little lines that we did earlier all the way through here. I want to leave my paint kind of chunky because I want to paint like Van Gogh. See, my paint is starting to blend a little bit too much. You can see the nice variation right there, but then here it gets blended. So that means I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to wipe that off. I want to have some of that yellow on there that's nice and solid and not fully mixed. I'm going to go through with all these small little brush strokes. Yes, that looks amazing. But now I'm going to add in just a little bit of yellow, or not yellow, a little bit of blue. So I'm going to take my blue and I want to lighten it just a little bit. So I'm going to take some white. So I just pulled some blue here and some white. I'm going to mix some light blue in. Remember, always pull from your edge. That looks like a great color. Now with that, I'm going to add just a little bit of blue. I don't need too much, and if it starts to mix into a green, make sure you wipe your brush off. Keep wiping that brush off to make sure that you have blue, not green, mixing in. We're just going to add a couple little lines of blue in here. Wiping that brush off a lot. You want to make sure that brush does not turn green. If it does turn green, just hold off, press pause on the video, take a break and come back. There we go. That's exactly what we're going for. Now let's start on our swirls. We are going to start on our big swirl and then we'll move to our smaller swirl. The goal with the big swirl is to keep its shape. So I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to take white paint. I'm going to use white so that I know where my space is. So about an inch above my swirl, I'm going to make a little dotted line that follows the swirl. By the way, I didn't wipe my brush off that good, so there is a little bit of yellow in there and a little bit of blue, but we're going to be mixing a lot anyway. I'm going to do the same thing to the bottom. About an inch below, I'm going to follow my swirl. Now that I have my swirl outlined, I'm going to use a lot of colors and I'm going to overlap and overlap and overlap. So, the way I suggest doing this is you do it just like we did with this one. You start at this end, you pull it through. Some can be long, some can be short. Go on back. Pull it forward, and then pull it back. It's okay if some of them jump outside of your swirl line because we are going to be adding some outside of that area later. So far all I've used is white, but it's time to add some more colors in. I'm going to pull in some purple. I did not wash my brush off. Pull in some purple, add some lines of purple in there. Now, if you are somebody who likes neat and orderly, organized things, you're going to notice that all of your swirl lines are the same. So I challenge you to throw a big one in there. Throw a big one every once in a while. It'll help you fill in the space and break up that perfect line of dashes. When I get to the point where I feel like there's probably a lot of purple in there, I'm going to wipe my brush off just a little. I'm not washing it. And I'm going to go in with some dark blue. The order in which you put the colors in doesn't necessarily matter, because you'll notice that if you cover up too much of the white, you just add some more back in later. Your colors will start to blend and mix. You want that. You want those paints to be thick too. We want to be able to see those brush strokes in here. Find the areas that you haven't gotten a lot of paint on and add some more paint to them. I love when the colors start to mix like this. Some of those whites are mixing with this dark blue and making it a little bit lighter. I'm now going to add in a little bit of yellow, and I mean a little bit of yellow. We do not want a lot of yellow in here, and if it starts to turn into green, stop. Wipe your brush off. The last color I'm going to put on this is going to be a very light blue. So I'm going to want to mix up a decent amount of white and blue to make a light blue color. And I'm going to put that on top because the sky is a little bit of a lighter color, but we want to make sure we've got all of that in there. There we go. So while we've got a lot going on our swirl, we've kind of ignored the rest of the sky a bit. And the last part we'll do is the sky, so don't worry about that. Add a little bit of white right there. I want to define that area. Any place that you feel like it gets a little dark, just throw some white in on top. It lightens it up very fast. All right, now that we've got our big swirl done, we're going to move on to our little swirl. And yeah, we might have lost some of that when we painted, and that's okay, because we can go back in and we can put it back in there. So I'm going to start again with some white. I'm going to go get some purple in there. Remember, if your lines are getting too simple, they're all the same. Add a couple of longer lines in there. I'm going to wipe my brush off before I go get my dark blue and put it in there. The smaller brush you use, the more detail you're going to get. It's going to take you longer. This is a long painting to do, but you'll have more detail to it. So you need to decide that for you, and I'm going to go in with my light blue. And then maybe a little bit of yellow in there. Just a little bit. The yellow goes a long way with this picture. The very next thing we're going to do is we're going to lay out where our stars are going to be. For that, I like to use the sky. We're going to finger paint. Those people that don't like to get messy, they're probably cursing me right now. But if you've ever been in one of my classes before, you know finger painting is my favorite. So I'm going to add a star up here. Maybe two over here. I'm going to put one right down here. Maybe one over here. I like that. Those 5 little guys are real cute. So with these, I'm going to go with my very small brush, and we're going to do the same thing we did with our sun. I'm going to take some yellow with just a hint of orange, and I'm just going to go around these. I'm just making dotted lines, little brush stroke lines all the way around these. I'm going to add in some white for some lightness. Perfect. I'm going to do that to all 5 of these guys. Wipe my brush off just a little bit when I get that white, because I don't want to have a light orange color. You can do all of your whites around them at the same time, so you don't have to keep washing your brushes off. Go through with all my yellows too. Knock all those out. Then grab that little bit of orange. So now that we have our stars finished, we're going to move on to the rest of the sky. The rest of the sky is going to be mostly a dark blue. I'm going to use dark blue on my brush with just a hint of white. So if you look at that, it's mostly dark blue and just a little white. And I am going to just start adding my texture. The more little lines you draw, the more it's going to look like Starry Night. It's okay if you see a little bit of white canvas behind it. And you can always go through and clean up your cypress tree if you need to. But your goal is to have your lines go horizontally across your paper, getting really close to the other elements you already added. If you're feeling kind of risky, grab some purple, put it in there with it. Van Gogh loved color. He loved mixing color to see what would happen with it. You're going to go all the way across your canvas, adding in some white spaces and some light spaces. Got a little bit too much white there, but that's not a big deal. Loving the way this is turning out. Add a little bit more white down there because it got kind of dark. You gotta watch yourself. Every once in a while, I just stop and look at what I'm doing to see if it's still making sense to me. Finish off this little area right here. Then we're going to look at it. What do we need to add? What do we need to change? Up here, I've got it all looks the same. I want it to be a little bit more fluid like down here, so I'm going to go back and I'm going to edit this area. Even if you paint all the time like I do, you always want to stop and look at what you have going on to make sure it's fitting with what you're wanting. Take a little bit more white in some of these areas. Let's talk about our final touches, our details. I'm going to use my smallest brush, my black paint. I'm going to not necessarily outline my cypress tree, but I want to add some line to it. I want to add a little bit of a buffer on the edge. I'm even going to add a little straight line right here to show that that's a separate piece. I'm going to wash this with water, which I never wash my brushes off. But I'm going to wash it because now it's time to add my steeple. I told you guys we'd add the steeple at the very end with a very, very, very light blue color. So a lot of white and just a little bit of blue. I'm going to go from right here all the way up to the yellow with the skinniest line, almost barely not even touching my canvas. I'm going to turn that into a very tall, skinny triangle. Now, if I can, if you can, it's up to you. You can do this later with a Sharpie, super skinny Sharpie, or you can flatten your brush out really thin. You can just very easily outline the edge of your steeple. And there you have it. Starry Night, Vincent van Gogh. I hope you guys had fun watching. Make sure you're sharing your talents as well. It's a great place to do it. I always put my initials right down there in the bottom corner. Have fun.